Hello students, welcome to JCE Connect. The subject is groundwater and hydraulics, 17CV 742. So we will start with module 1, that is module 1 covers the introduction to the groundwater and hydraulics, importance of groundwater, then vertical distribution of the subsurface water or the groundwater, occurrence of this groundwater in different types of rocks and soil. Then we are going to discuss the few definitions like aquifer, aquifuse, aquitard, aquiclude, and what is confined and unconfined aquifer, that we are going to discuss in module 1. So let us begin with the introduction to the groundwater. So groundwater, all the water which is occurring beneath the surface of the earth, that is called as the groundwater, or it is also called as underground water or the subsurface water. So all this water which is present below the ground, below the earth surface, that is called as the groundwater. So it is also called as underground water or subsurface, because all gives the same meaning, that is below the earth surface, that is water is present, so it is called as the groundwater. And this groundwater is studied under a branch called groundwater hydrology. So groundwater hydrology may be defined as the science of occurrence, then distribution and the movement of the groundwater below the earth's surface, that is called as the groundwater hydrology. So here in this we are going to study how the groundwater occurs, how it is distributed and how it moves, that is the movement of the water below the earth's surface, that is studied under groundwater hydrology. So the infiltered water, whatever water is infiltrating into the ground, okay, that water passes downward into the earth and it occurs beneath the water table in the soil and the different geological formations like different rocks and that are fully saturated. So this water is known as the groundwater, which is one of the main part of the hydrological cycle, and it is important source of groundwater supply for different purposes like irrigation, industries and municipal water supply. So that is why the groundwater is the important source, because we need the groundwater, we are more reliable on this source of water, that is groundwater. So to begin with, we'll first understand what is the amount of groundwater or how the groundwater is distributed, okay, so below the earth. So if you take the earth's total water, so fresh water is available so here the fresh water is available only 3% and maximum is saline water, that is 97%. You can imagine the saline water is 97% and only 3% of the water is fresh water which is available. And out of these 3%, if you take, okay, 68%, that is maximum, that is covered in ice caps and glaciers, which is trapped in glaciers and ice caps, and only 30.1% of the water is available as the groundwater. And surface water, if you take, that is only 0.3%. okay, whatever water is present on the surface, that is in the form of rivers and all, lakes, rivers, swamps, that is only 0.3%, whereas the groundwater is available 30%. So you can imagine, so here more compared to surface water, groundwater availability is more. So there is a need to study these groundwater resources, and proper management of this resource is very important. So we are studying this subject called groundwater and hydraulics. And other sources include only 0.9%. So surface water, if you take out of 0.3%, if you take it as 100, 87% is available in the lakes, okay, and 11% is available in swamps, and only 2% is available in the rivers, right? So this is all about the fresh water. Underground water, that is groundwater, if you talk, it is 30.1% which is available. So we will study about this groundwater in the upcoming classes. Now, why this groundwater is important? What is the importance of this groundwater? So groundwater, that is which is present in the aquifers below the surface of the earth, that is one of the most important natural resource. You can see this is one of the important natural resource which is available in the nature. So it is the important source. Yes, so this is the natural resource which is available. So the groundwater plays an important role. Then the water, this water is essential for survival of the mankind, and there has been a continuous growth in the demand. This is very important. We are the demand for this water has increased a lot in the past few years, okay. So we need water for agriculture, industrial, municipal and navigational, also for recreational sectors throughout the world, okay. Throughout the world the need for the water has increased because of the increasing population and other reasons, okay. So there are two major sources of the water to meet this demand, this increasing demand of the water. One is surface water and other one is groundwater, that we call it as underground water. So the surface water sources, if you talk, they are dependent primarily on this annual rainfall. So the surface water that depends on annual rainfall and even the melting of ice and snow. So whatever ice caps are melting in the summer season, they also contribute water to the rivers. So those rivers, we call it as perennial rivers. The water is available throughout the year, okay. And there are few rivers which are seasonal, they depend on rainfall, right? Only during rainy season they flow. So that is all about the surface water. So overall these we cannot have a control, right? So over which there is no control can be exercised, because these all depend upon the natural phenomena which are happening on the earth. So it may cause floods also almost every year in some part of the earth, whereas a shortage of the rainfall often causes even the drought conditions also. So there are few places wherein we can experience the flood, and there are few where we experience the drought conditions, okay. So there will be scarcity of water. So this is why the water plays a very important role. Next, the groundwater supply is more reliable because it does not depend directly on annual rainfall, and also it is free from enormous evaporation losses as compared to the surface water sources. So if you compare both surface water and groundwater, what happens here? The groundwater is more safe from the evaporation losses. They are less compared to the surface water. Surface water, as it is exposed to the atmosphere, the evaporation losses are more compared to the groundwater. So here the groundwater supply is more reliable, okay, because it doesn't depend directly on the annual rainfall, and it also occupies minimum land area, which is not available in many cities nowadays, right? So there is no danger to the structure failure, right? And little insecurity due to damage by the enemy in the event of war. So here if you compare the surface water storage and groundwater storage, there is no danger to the structure failure, okay, as in case of surface water. If you take an example of a dam, right? So dam is on the surface, so during any event like war, if the dam gets destructed, what will happen? Suppose it may be a bomb blast or any situation in the war. If it damages the structure, then what happens? There will be a loss of life, loss of property, right? But if you take the groundwater resource, right, they are less affected by this kind of situations of war. Therefore, there has been an increasing emphasis on utilization of groundwater resources to meet the growing demands of the water. So as the population is increasing, the water demand is also increasing. So to emphasize on the utilization of groundwater resources, we need to undertake the studies, okay, regarding the groundwater. So the withdrawal of groundwater, that has again become that is again causing problem, right? Because we are not withdrawing the groundwater in a scientific way or a well planned way. So because of this reason, there is indiscriminate use of groundwater, which has caused critical lowering of the water table or water logging problems also we are facing. So here withdrawal of groundwater also plays an important role, that because that is more important, right? We should do it in a scientific way and well planned manner, okay? So seawater intrusion in coastal aquifers, if you talk, that is again a major issue, right? Because there is a problem of salt water intrusion in the coastal aquifers, right, where on the land we have fresh water, and in the sea or the ocean we have the saline water. So as you extract more amount of fresh water, what happens? The salt water, okay, below the ground, underground movement will take place, and that saline water, it tries to mix into the fresh water. So as you extract more amount of fresh water because of the increasing demand of the fresh water, right, there will be more intrusion of saline water into the aquifers. So the ultimate aim of this of studying groundwater is to address such type of issues, right? So there will be deterioration of water quality due to rising of the water table, and even the land subsidence, which is caused by reduction in the water pressure due to heavy withdrawals. That are other problems which are caused due to again unplanned and unscientific management of aquifers. So the groundwater is a major component of hydrological cycle, okay. little change. So little change in the groundwater can impact the water cycle. So we'll see now why or how the groundwater that plays an important role in the hydrological cycle. So we have already studied the hydrological cycle, right? So here yes, so hydrological cycle, if you talk about, right, so this groundwater plays an important role in hydrological cycle. So groundwater is a major component of the earth's water circulatory system, that we call it as hydrological cycle, right? So the water bearing formations, which are water bearing formations of the earth's crust, they act a conduit or a passage for transmission of this groundwater, and as they act as a reservoir for the storage of the water. You can see here below, right? So whatever water that infiltrates into the ground, that we call by a process called infiltration, the rainfall, okay, the precipitated water, when it infiltrates and becomes the groundwater, right? So here in the rocks, okay, the groundwater gets stored, okay. So here it acts as a passage or conduit for the transmission, and it acts as a reservoir also, because it will store the groundwater which is percolated. So the water, it enters these formations from from the ground surface or from the bodies of the surface water, okay, after which it travels slowly for varying distances until it returns to the surface by the action of natural flow or the plants or through the human beings. So whatever water has infiltrated, you can see again it will become the surface water, okay, by different means. So for all the practical purposes, the groundwater originates from the surface water sources, right? So here the groundwater is dependent on the surface water. So water which infiltrates into the ground by the natural recharge process, like it depends on rainfall, okay, the water from the stream flow and the reservoirs, lakes, they are the sources for infiltration into the ground, okay. So also the surface water irrigation also contributes to the artificial recharge of the groundwater. So this infiltered water, which has become underground water or groundwater, it then moves further into the ground and under the force of gravity. So when a zone of saturation is reached, the water, it starts flowing laterally, right? Here you can see the movement of the water will be lateral when it gets filled. All the pore spaces, when they get filled, the water flows horizontally, okay. So the direction of the flow is controlled by again the hydraulic boundary conditions. So the sea water also can enter underground along the coast, and that also cause the problem. So water within the underground, it moves downward through the unsaturated zone under the action of gravity, okay. So whereas in the saturated zone, it moves in the direction which is determined by the surrounding hydraulic conditions. So the discharge of this groundwater, it represents a return of the water above the ground surface mostly in the water bodies in the form of springs or seepage. You can see here this groundwater, again it will become surface water in the form of springs or the surface spring or the seepage into the stream. It will flow into the, it will join the stream. Okay, so the evaporation and transpiration, they are the other modes of discharge. So again this also when it becomes again surface water, there will be evaporation, and even through plants whatever evaporation takes place, we call it as a transpiration. So artificial recharge in the form of pumping of the groundwater, hydrological pumping of the groundwater, that also plays an important role. So hydrological cycle, as it is shown in the figure here, you can see clearly how the contribution of groundwater is important for hydrological cycle. So here essentially all the groundwater that is in the motion. Okay, so groundwater moves in response to the hydraulic gradient in the same manner as the water flowing in an open channel or a pipe. So the flow of the groundwater is restricted by friction with the porous medium through which it is passing or it is flowing. So this results into what? The low velocities and the high head loss. So head loss will be more and the velocity will be reduced. So this velocity may vary from few centimeters per year to few meters per day. So this is how the hydrological cycle is dependent on groundwater.